How's it going, guys? Welcome back again for some more Tales from Timor. Story time. So I came home from school one day and I noticed that my host sister was out back washing the dishes. So I go up to her and I ask if she could use any help. And she says, no, she's just finished. And that was the whole interaction. Now, I didn't think very much of this interaction. It wasn't until the next day when my host sister told my host mother about what happened. And my host mother laughs at it and she says, no, you don't need to do that. That is women's work. Needless to say, this took me by surprise. Because while I grew up in a fairly traditional household, no one had come out and just said something like that to me before. And this had me asking so many questions to myself. Do I correct my host mother on this sort of traditional way of thinking? But then again, who am I as a man to tell her how she can and can't express her own gender identity? There is something very ironic about a man telling a woman how to embody feminism. But at the same time, am I still being sexist by letting her continue to wash the dishes? Now, ultimately, this wasn't a major discussion that we had. This was just a small interaction. But also, it is indicative of a problem that men face when they are trying to embody healthy masculinity. And that is that a lot of times, men really hog the conversation when it comes to talking about femininity. Like, if I had a nickel for every time I saw a conversation take place about femininity without a woman present or a woman being talked over, I wouldn't be a millionaire by any stretch, but I would have a fairly concerning number of nickels. And that is something that really bothers me. However, I think this is a bigger problem with how we perceive masculinity as men. See, as men, we are constantly bombarded with these ideals of masculinity from a time we're a very young age. And that has further been exacerbated by the rise of social media and people like Andrew Tate and hustle culture and Instagram fitness. Like, there's this rule called the 666 rule that is quite possibly one of the dumbest things I have ever heard. For those of you who don't know what the 666 rule is, look it up. I don't want to explain it. So from a young age, we're all just inundated with these images of masculinity. And a lot of times we just sit there and accept it because we're young and impressionable and stupid. But the thing is that with us being men, this ideal is an automatic top of the hierarchy sort of role. So chasing that ideal form of masculinity is chasing first place. Who doesn't want to be first place? And that's why men tend to talk about femininity in a very diminutive manner, because their thought process goes something like, we've accepted the unrealistic expectations that are placed upon us. Why can't you accept yours? And while men are thinking this, they are oblivious to the fact that the ideal form of femininity places women in second place, which is frankly where no one wants to be. And so I believe that we need to be done with this whole ideal man type nonsense that it keeps getting peddled to us by other people. And I know this might seem hypocritical from somebody who looks like traditional masculinity has served him rather well. I mean, I'm 6'4". I have a pretty muscular frame, and for all intents and purposes, I'm conventionally attractive. In the words of Pop Smoke, I ain't a pretty boy, but I ain't ugly. However, I believe that this ideal man is devastating even for people like me, because this ideal masculine form is like the fruit and the water to Tantalus in the pit of Tartarus. The farther we reach for it, the more it pulls away. And men will go to extreme lengths to try and achieve this ideal. So now's the time for a little Big Siefk origin story. So I grew up in an area where high school sports were everything. Like, the talk of the town every Friday night was, were you going to the high school football game? All the kids went to the football stadium to go hang out and watch these players play. Friday night high school football was the event in the area where I grew up. And growing up, I was pretty good at sports. I mean, I wasn't a phenom by any means, but I had a lot of potential. I think the thing that really held me back a lot was the fact that I didn't possess the killer instinct that was required for me to excel in these sports. Instead, I was much more interested in things like music, poetry, books. I was an artsy fartsy kid stuck in a jock's body. But I stuck with these sports because that was the ideal. That was what I was chasing after, even though it didn't necessarily agree with me. And then I decided that I was going to walk away from it. And then what proceeded to follow was probably the lowest 3 to 4 years I have ever experienced, because I had cut away so many parts of me that were essential to who I was, trying to fit into this mold, that trying to regrow everything again was not a painless process. And it took me a long time to recover from that. I think I'm still recovering from it now, because that ideal form of masculinity is still hiding in the back of my head. I mean, I still have a lingering sense of body dysmorphia because I don't look like Chris Hemsworth or Chris Evans or any of those guys that you see on Instagram fitness. I still get a little frustrated because of the fact that I am not making a lot of money at my age, even though I'm only 24. And I still grapple with the fact that I could have been an athlete. Now, I don't want to go on without saying that men are not the only people that are perpetuating this narrative. Women are just as capable of perpetuating this stereotype too. I have seen some stuff on the internet that is incredibly toxic behavior from women towards men. Much in the same way that I've seen terribly toxic material that has been perpetuated towards women by men. The thing is with this whole entire femininity versus masculinity battle is that it is portrayed as just that, a battle. Like somehow the other side loses if the other one wins. And that's why men tend to talk over women when it comes to these issues of femininity. Because nobody likes to lose. And so yes, as men, we have a lot of problems that we have to come to terms with. But you know who else has a lot of problems? Other people. And so I think as a society, if we stop looking at each other as the enemy, or that somehow by one person winning, another one loses, and vice versa, then I feel like we as a society can help to move our progress forward, as opposed to just staying in the same place. Because to me, the ideal man isn't the tallest, the strongest, or the most handsome person in the room. It's the one who embraces who he is, sees his flaws, and works hard to overcome them. As Parthenax once said, is it better to be born good or to overcome your evil nature through great effort? Ate logu, guys. I'll see you next week. Before you go though, don't forget to like and subscribe, and go ahead and check out the new Big Siefk single in the description. I hope I put it in there. I realize I've been forgetting to do that occasionally. Yeah guys, make sure you go listen to that. Just stick around for the channel, and if you like all this stuff, let me know. Share. I would love to spread the message around. Yeah guys, I'll see you around.